This doctrine is amongst all the doctrines the most excellent, but it is hard to explain and hard to comprehend. Even the Duke of Zhou and Confucius could not attain a knowledge of it. This doctrine can create religious merit and retribution without measure and without bounds, and so lead on to a full appreciation of the highest wisdom. Every prayer is fulfilled, and naught is wanting. The people who made the Japanese islands their home did not forget about the lands their ancestors had come from, nor about the gods of those lands which they brought with them to become the gods of the religion we now know as Shinto. Long before the myths of Amaterasu and her descendants were written, Shinto was a living, breathing religion of nature spirits. Mountains, rivers, trees, stones, fire and water. But the small kingdoms of the Japanese Isles had remained intimately connected to those on the Korean peninsula, trading, exchanging, learning, marrying, and warring. Embassies were exchanged, noble and royal marriage alliances forged, technology transferred, and missionaries sent. There was a relationship of deep respect, and so in the middle of the 6th century, when King Sung of Baekje, a kingdom in the western part of the peninsula, sent his letter sharing the peace of the Buddha with Emperor Kinmei, His Imperial Highness's chief advisor, Soga no Ename, stroked his beard and smiled behind a ceremonial fan. His time had come at last. The long years of scheming with his Korean kin and continental-minded allies in the Yamato court had resulted at last in this mission's arrival. It seemed sudden, heaven-sent, but it was nothing of the sort. Soga and his family had spent years, perhaps even decades, arranging it all. This was not the first time Buddha's teachings had reached Japan. A number of the common people had been preached to by monks in generations past, some of the holy men even claiming to have come from as far away as the land of the Buddha's birth. But such common, barefoot migrant priests received no patronage, and even less aristocratic interest. Soga no Ename's family had been aware, perhaps even secret followers of the teachings, for generations. He knew both that Buddhism was salvation for his sovereign and a way of concentrating power in his own hands. He would be the first noble of consequence to take up Buddha's banner. He and his clan would hold it aloft in battle, claiming the divine power to smite and confound their foes. But nature, or maybe the old Shinto gods, it seemed, did not agree with Soga's new religion. Plague broke out, and Soga's enemy at court seized upon this as proof that the true gods of the land were insulted. And Emperor Kinmei, in a fearful rage and in mortal fear for his life and kingdom, ordered Buddhist temples destroyed. It would be left to Soga no Ename's descendants to reclaim the Buddhist mandate. The army of the imperial princes and the troops of the ministers were timid and afraid, and fell back 3 times. At this, the imperial prince Shotoku, his hair being tied on his temples, followed in the rear of the army. He pondered in his own mind, saying to himself, "Without prayer we cannot succeed." So he cut down a tree and swiftly fashioned images of the 4 heavenly kings. Placing them on his topknot, he uttered a vow. "If we are now made to gain the victory over the enemy, I promise faithfully to honor the 4 heavenly kings, guardians of the world, by erecting to them a temple with a pagoda." And so, Prince Shotoku swept to victory. When he was appointed head of government under his aunt, Japan's first and longest reigning female empress regnant Suiko, he made Buddhism the state religion. Together they established temples, sent embassies to sway China, established a calendar to understand the heavens, and a constitution to enshrine both Buddhism and Chinese Confucian order as the guiding principles of life, at least for aristocrats in the new nation, which within a century would become generally known by a term he is said to have invented: the land of the rising sun, Nihon, or Japan. From the chaos and tribal infighting of the 5th century, Shotoku and Suiko established the roots of a stable state, which would in time come to dominate the 3 main islands, Honshu, Kyushu, and Shikoku, and impose semi-vassal status on the wild tribes of the north, and the tattooed Amami Island peoples of the far south. Future religious and secular leaders would claim that he came to them in visions and dreams, inspiring them to great deeds and profound spiritual understanding. In his vision, his accomplishments, and the recognition granted him down the ages, Prince Shotoku can justly claim to be the father of the nation we now know as Japan.